I am writing the first book in a new series called Advanced Starship Tactics. It's called Last Charge of the Defiant. And it is a story that is pulling together plots from multiple other books and multiple other series. There is going to be a confrontation near the Omicron 474 singularity, and if you have followed the story in Starship Expeditionary Fleet and Destroy All Starships, you know what took place near that enormous distortion. There are a lot of plot elements that converge at that location, not the least of which is the recently discovered wreck of a ship you may have heard of. Now, part of this plot was revealed in the infamous 24. The rest of it is going to be revealed in Last Charge of the Defiant, which is going to contain one of the most dramatic and intense space battle sequences that I've ever written. So I'd like you to enjoy an excerpt from my upcoming book, and stay tuned to the channel because there will be further excerpts as the story unfolds. I give you Last Charge of the Defiant.
Where is Admiral James? My apologies. My duties keep me far too occupied to monitor the comings and goings of ranking officers in other fleets. The confrontation between Southern Banner and the unofficial but coordinated mid-ranking officers of Skywatch Command had been a long time coming. Benjamin Powers was of two minds about the whole affair. On the one hand, he had many fires that needed extinguishing, both real and metaphorical. On the other hand, it was past time someone found a way to punch through the wall of nonsense that up to now had frustrated the reasonable men and women of Skywatch in their efforts to protect core space from what everyone knew by now was no longer a hypothetical threat. The Admiral had chosen Gale River as the site for his meeting, rather than the far more regular fleet option of Allegheny Base. The Core 3 system had no shortage of Alliance facilities upon which high-ranking personnel could meet and exchange hostilities. This appointment was certain to be no different. Powers had planned ahead. He was wearing his full duty uniform, which elicited a little too aggressive salute from his counterparty. Commander Mitchell Wayne joined CNC Southern Banner along the 200-foot bay window on Observation 2. The spacious and abandoned deck had a magnificent view of the wreck of DSS Dunkirk, which was still under radiation protocols long after the Victory engagement over Bayonne 3. Colonel? Commander Wayne stopped short when he saw Daria Komanov. She was not wearing her duty uniform. She was dressed in her most diabolical field array, red on black with a long coat, night black boots, and gloves to match. She carried a severe garrison cap on her belt with her shiny new silver oak leaf. On her other hip, she was armed with a dangerous-looking modified TK-20, a powerful weapon carried only by Intelligence Division personnel. She almost resembled a sharper and colder relation of Jace Hunter, even though Komanov was quite a bit taller and thinner than Fury's skipper. Komanov's Marine rank made her the infantry equivalent of Wayne. At the same time, her reputation preceded her everywhere in the fleet. Most had lost track of where she served, what her missions were, and how she fit into military hierarchies. The truth was, she no longer answered to the regular Marine chain of command. She was also no longer a division chief. She was now the field agent equivalent of a deputy director. Her report was ostensibly a 3-star, but there were persistent rumors he or she was not a general officer in the Marine Corps. There were further rumors her other report was a civilian cabinet-level official whose involvement in matters of state served as a fine distraction from his real duties as one of the president's key security advisors. The executive branch of the Alliance government often held up one man or woman as the key official, while leaving aside the fact there were 3 others who were less famous and authorized far more latitude in conducting other matters of state. In practical terms, this made Lieutenant Colonel Daria Komanov a very unsettling presence in just about any context, official or otherwise. She had done a magnificent job of consolidating her power. She had also invested what resources she obtained through her promotions, from company to field ranks, in singling out officers in vital positions for whispered favors in exchange for their observations obtained in faraway places. Among her ad hoc operatives were none other than Derek Walsh, the enigmatic captain of the assault destroyer Rhode Island, the aforementioned Jace Hunter, who was practically guaranteed to have been responsible for more than a few of the semi-official gadgets Komanov was famous for deploying without authorization, and several other officers and NCOs who formed a parallel intelligence organization capable of operating with minimal oversight, plausible deniability, and ruthless efficiency. It had often been said that any meeting involving personnel not currently at war with CNC Southern Banner might as well have included Komanov even if she weren't actually in the room. Commander Wayne hailed from another hierarchy's turf. He was good at his job and occasionally a formidable adversary for the people he claimed to serve with. But in this situation he was outnumbered, and that put him immediately on the defensive, at least rhetorically. Komanov didn't speak. She didn't seem to blink either. Her eyes were unusually intense. "Isn't this a little melodramatic, Admiral?" Wayne said. "Charming, to the last." Powers had to give the man credit. He always knew exactly how to dishonor the dead in the fewest words possible. The Admiral let it go. "I like to see where we've been before we decide where we're going, Mitch," Powers replied. "Where are we going, Admiral?" The whole point for officers like Wayne was to gather information, return to base, and conspire. It was no different than the mediocre machinations of corporate managers. They spent exactly none of their time doing their jobs, and all of their time trying to destroy someone else's. Some contended the private sector was mostly daycare for adults. Powers disagreed. He preferred to explain the strained societal dysfunction in the working world as high school drama impersonation, and boring impersonation at that. "I want to talk about the Delgato investigation." "It's not my department, sir." "Well, I want to talk about it anyway." "Is it the matter classified? St. Lucia was in violation of general fleet regulations when that engagement took place. Delgato knew his ship didn't belong there. We all saw the deployment reports. We were about to get a closer look, and suddenly the whole thing was classified. The timing was convenient, at least, if someone was trying to cover their tracks." "What's your theory, Mitch? Half-Net's murdered the captain of her own flagship during combat operations?" Powers couldn't help but raise his voice a notch or two. He had been listening to the nonsense and keeping his mouth shut up to now, but even raking admirals had their limits. "I have no theories, Admiral. I'll leave the conclusions to the appropriate authorities." Wayne 1, Powers 0, Komanov thought. She was listening intently. Some might have interpreted her silence as a demonstration of her side's disadvantages. The truth was she was seeking weakness, not practicing it. "We know he was shot. We know approximately when it took place, and we know the security systems on St. Lucia's bridge were apparently damaged during the battle. Up to now, we haven't been able to piece things together, because the only record we had was audio. Wasn't terribly useful, because the record was created during a firefight, and the ship was heavily damaged. But we kept digging, and it turns out not all of the security monitors were malfunctioning." Powers did a fine job of keeping the tone of his voice conversational, even though he had just announced new evidence in a murder case.